Welcome to Red Eye. Hello, everyone. I'm Brooke Goldstein. Let's welcome our guest. He wrote a book telling people to have more children. I'm one step ahead of you, buddy. I'm here tonight with Jonathan Lass, senior writer at the Weekly Standard. His latest book is called The Dadly Virtues. Looks like Little Boy Blue is now a handsome young man. Ladies, feel free to holla at this Hebrew. It's TV's Andy Levy. And filling out our beard quota for the night, it's comedian Joe DeVito. His comedy album, First Date with Joe DeVito, is now available on Amazon and iTunes. And he's brighter than a strobe light and far less annoying. Sitting right next to me is Reason Magazine editor-in-chief Matt Welch.
A-Block, the lead. That's the first story.
One candidate this election has locked down the weed-smoking rapper vote. No, it's not Mike Huckabee. Hillary Clinton already has endorsements from Waka Flocka Flame. Who is that? And Ja Rule. And on Monday, Snoop Dogg offered his support during an interview on the network where I get all my election news. Bravo.
I would love to see a woman in office because I feel like we're at that stage in life to where we need a perspective other than the male train of thought, and just to have a woman speaking from a global perspective as far as representing America, I would love to see that. So I'll be voting for Ms. Clinton.
Joe, Hillary broke her silence with the press today, and we'll get to that. But what do you think contributed to Snoop's about-face in terms of what he thinks the role of women in society are, going from bitches and hoes to presidential candidates?
Well, it's interesting he's interested in a woman's perspective, because if you look at his first album cover, the woman's position was on all fours with her head inside a doghouse. So it's nice to see that kind of personal growth coming from someone over the years. Yeah, you know, I guess if, you know, Hillary Clinton's had 20 years in the public eye to prove her qualifications, and we still are going by, well, she's a woman, she's of a certain gender, so we think there might be some sort of accomplishment we could maybe hear about in the meantime. But I guess not. I guess we're all, they're just admitting that, well, both, she's a woman, that's about it.
Right. And Andy, shouldn't we just all let Hillary's many scandals, you know, slide by, forget about Emailgate, forget about Benghazi, forget about her Muslim Brotherhood princess Huma Abedin, and just vote for her because she's a woman and women are the best?
That was fast. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, I wish everyone would forget about Hillary's various scandals. I know I've already forgotten about all of them. But yeah, I love Snoop. He says, I would love to see a woman in office because I feel like we're at that stage in life where we need a perspective other than the male's train of thought. So I assume if Carly Fiorina is the GOP nominee, he'll be voting for her. Except I don't think so. So I love you, Snoop, but just like everyone else who says they're voting for Hillary because she's a woman, they're full of crap. Because they would never vote for a Republican.
So then, Matt, why are rappers drawn to Hillary as opposed to, let's say, Carly Fiorina?
God help me if I don't know. It doesn't make, Hillary is one of the worst drug warriors on the Democratic side of the aisle. Always has been. She's going to moderate her stance a little bit now so that she looks like she's slightly different than Jeb Bush or something. But she's always been terrible on this. She's terrible about free speech. Right. She's always been, you know, let's go after the video games and these people producing filth for our kids. She is the anti-Snoop Dogg. It's sad for me as a fellow LBC native to watch someone, you know, ruin his good reputation by getting involved with Hillary Clinton politics.
You and Snoop went to high school together, didn't you?
Nearby high school.
Yeah.
And yet we know, you know, the youth generation, whatever we're called these days, are going to listen to Waka Waka, whatever his name is, and Snoop Dogg.
I don't think the youth generation and Snoop Dogg are like this anymore. Yeah. I think our youth generation was, but then we got a little bit older. Yeah.
But, Jonathan, should Republicans be doing more to court the rap vote?
You know, I don't know why you guys assume that Carly would not. Carly Fiorina is straight gangsta. Like, time that, like, HP taught us anything. I think they have a lot of respect for that. Yeah, no, what struck me about this story, I grew up with, you know, ain't nothing but hoes and tricks, as you said, and I saw, hand to God, Ice Cube on Sesame Street last week, and I thought if you go back in a time machine to 1992 and told these guys, you know, you're going to be shilling for Hillary Clinton and you're going to be like with Elmo, they would jump off a bridge. They would never believe that this is, and so I think the lesson is that time turns all of us into monsters, no matter how cool we think we are when we're like 25.
I'd like to get a time machine and go back and show Ice Cube's IMDb page.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh, F the police, you mean the ones at the premiere for Are We There Yet Too? The
Right.
ones who are doing your security? I'd be curious to see his reaction to that.
On Tuesday, Hillary Clinton, energized by Snoop's endorsement, broke her months-long media silence and took questions from reporters during a stop in Iowa. Initially, she brushed off the press when Fox's Ed Henry gently suggested it.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, maybe when I finish talking to the people here. How's that? I might. I'll have to ponder it. But I will put it on my list for due consideration.
She did consider it and agreed to answer several questions. On the matter of her private emails, Clinton said she wants the State Department to release them ASAP.
I have said repeatedly, I want those emails out. Nobody has a bigger interest in getting them released than I do. You know, I want the American people to learn as much as we can about the work that I did with our diplomats and our development experts, because I think it will show how hard we worked and what we did. I have said publicly, I'm repeating it here in front of all of you today, I want them out as soon as they can get out.
But will you demand it? Will you demand it?
Well, they're not mine. They belong to the State Department.
Matt, how excited are you to read the 55,000 pages of emails that Clinton hand-picked herself for us? I've
always said that the fastest way to get emails out ASAP is to write them on your own server and then to destroy them and lie about the machines that you use to write them and then lie about it over and over again. I hope she doesn't ever answer another question for the next 6 months. I love to watch Democrats who 7, 8 years ago were talking about, you know, executive power run amok and how we need a transparent administration, all this kind of stuff. I want to sit there and watch them writhe in pain as someone who does not even give a flying frog, you know, just says, what are you going to do? Not coronate me? I am the nominee. I can do anything that I want. I am the nominee. It's great.
And I mean, how telling is it that the State Department is saying that they need until January 2016 to release the emails because they don't have enough time to go through it, and yet the delay is because Clinton delayed handing them over. They should have had it the whole time. So, John, you know, given that we're in the middle of a House committee investigation on Benghazi and that documents proving Clinton knew in advance that this was a pre-planned attack by al-Qaeda, had nothing to do with a YouTube film, and given now that we're learning that she has a secret email account, what difference does it make that she still refuses to hand over her emails to an objective third party?
I don't know why you guys don't love her. Her troll game is so strong. No, I mean, that clip was so great. You saw, you know, like the bug eyes nodding. She's barely even hiding the fact that she's lying to you, and I think that's kind of awesome. You know, she's going to troll the media so hard for the next, you know, 8 years or however long it is. And that's kind of interesting in its own way, because it really puts the media in, you know, a pretty bad spot because they just are playing along. Finally, you know, Ed Henry had the guts to, like, you know, try to interrupt her. She talks to everyday Americans. But most of the rest of the media is just playing along, and it's great. It exposed them for what they are.
So, Joe, Clinton initially mocked the media, or mocked the idea of engaging with the press, right? So is snarkiness an important quality for the future president of the United States of America?
I think it's a great path for her to take. I think one thing a lot of observers said about Hillary Clinton was like, you got to dial back the warmth. It's coming across as too warm and engaging. That's a classic trick she's doing. I remember when I used to have a corporate job that if you wanted to avoid getting in trouble for something, when people would say, like, well, what happened here? If you just went, that's what I want to know. on their side. This idea of, first of all, even my dad doesn't print out emails. This idea that the emails were printed out, like, oh, it's going to be delayed, we're out of paper. We've run out of paper, and paper tray 1. But the idea of her saying she's waiting for this outcome, it reminds me of someone who needs to be searched for drugs saying, hey, I want you to search me. I'm just going to be in the bathroom flushing things for a couple hours before we do that.
And she admitted to deleting 30,000 emails, right?
Yeah, of course.
But they belong to the public.
Yeah. Now they, gee, thanks.
Go find them.
You had your own State Department email account you didn't use.
Exactly.
To be fair, though, nobody is more upset than she is that she deleted those emails.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I buy her sincerity. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So does Clinton now not have to speak to the press for another 3 months, Andy?
She really doesn't until next November. And the thing is, I agree. I don't care that she's trolling the press. I mean, I care that she's trolling the American people. But I don't care that she's trolling the press. The response of the press should be to stop covering her. Stop going to these stupid town hall things or whatever. Stop covering her completely. Stop sending reporters after her. Every network, every newspaper, every website should pull their reporters off of the Clinton. Let her do her own little thing. If she doesn't want to talk to the press, if she doesn't want to talk to the American public, fine. Let her not do it. The thing is, it would be hilarious that she has the balls to say she wants everything out there after everything she's done to prevent that, except for the fact that there are people who will believe her. There are people out there right now going, see, it's not her fault. She wants everything released. And that's the part that drives me absolutely batty. I also want, from now on, if we're going to play Hillary Clinton video, I want a trigger warning for me before it, because I can't take that anymore. I am not going to last till November 2016, I'm telling you right now.
Okay. All aboard the censorship. Get it? A New York Arts Center has canceled an event that was supposed to protest censorship after one of the plays, titled Mohammed Gets a Boner, was judged too offensive to Muslims. That's offensive? Wow. The Sheen Center, a Catholic institution, pulled the plug after its director learned that the play centered around the Prophet of Islam sleeping with a white woman. The charity event will go on, however, at another venue, but the controversial Mohammed play will not be performed at the playwright's own request. Neil LaBute explained, "Unfortunately, the event was starting to become all about my play and its title. I wanted my play to provoke real thought and debate, and I now feel like that opportunity has been lost." Okay, so, John, I hear the Weekly Standard is going to host a Draw Mohammed party this weekend. They'll be serving alcohol by scantily clad women in solidarity with free speech, and afterwards they're doing a rendition of Mohammed Has a Boner.
Yeah,
right?
We're doing
So
it at
where can we get tickets?
We're doing it at Andy's house. It's going to be great. I can't make it myself. Yeah. But no, this is, yeah, I'm glad this is going on somewhere. But it does.
But it's not going on. That's the point. It's not going to happen.
It's yeah, but it's these small potatoes things that drive me a little bit crazy, because what we need is, like classic game theory says, well, if after the Charlie Hebdo massacre we had the New York Times, the Guardian, the Washington Post, Wall Street, all these large outlets publishing them, then what you can do is you can say, see, it doesn't matter to the jihadis what you do. You can, shoot up a bunch of people, but we sort of networked this, and it's going to be, hard to keep down. But now, because I would say we wind up with targets like Pan Geller, and because it is only a few Confederates, and if anything, it's actually probably more dangerous than it was back when the Charlie Hebdo massacre happened. And it's terribly depressing, I think.
In fairness, a lot of the newspapers, with the notable and ridiculous exception of the New York Times, did reprint the Charlie Hebdo cartoons, the first cartoon afterwards, at least on their websites, which is much different than what they did after the Danish Mohammed cartoons. Right. That was the moment, I think, when there was a fork in the road and we took the wrong fork, basically. And now, I mean, when I read the story, my impression was, wow, I can't believe they even thought about doing this in the first place. Like, we have backslid so much in terms of basic sort of bravery about how to do Cheap Jack blaspheming things, We had, a reason we had a Draw Mohammed contest in 2011. Like, if you were going to do that now, you'd think about it differently. Like, the whole culture has changed, and that's a sickness right now.
Yeah.
And I think we're not terrified enough by the fact that we have a cartoonist who's in hiding, who disappeared herself in America because of this.
What's amazing to me is how we've totally mixed up cause and effect. When Pamela Geller did her cartoon contest, the media, not just the liberal, so-called liberal media, but pretty much everyone in the media was saying, well, didn't you expect that to happen? Cartoons do not cause violence. It's imams preaching violence as a legitimate response to cartoons that cause violence. And we just seem to forget that.
And when you actually print the cartoon, you show how dumb it is to get violent over it. That's
right,
the point.
right. So, Andy, you told me in the green room, however, that you don't see any problem with allowing radical Muslims to our free speech, and that all Muslims have to be treated with kid gloves and protected from anything deemed offensive. So can you explain that a little bit, please?
I believe that's in the Constitution. Thank you very much. Look, here's the thing about this event, though. Yeah, it shouldn't have been canceled if it was canceled because they didn't want to offend Muslims while not caring about offending people of other faiths. Similar to the way, like, the New York Times goes bat crap crazy about drawing Mohammed cartoons. Oh, you can't do that. It's offensive. But they have no problem publishing a drawing of Piss Christ.
Total double standard.
But in this case, that doesn't seem to be the deal. I feel like in this case, if LaBute's play had been called Jesus Gets a Boner, they would have canceled the event too. Because the Sheen Center, their whole thing is they say, quote, that they will not be a forum that mocks or satirizes another faith group, which is perfectly within their right to be. I might suggest that in the future, a place that has a problem with satirizing religion shouldn't be a place where you schedule a benefit for the National Coalition Against Censorship.
Right.
It might have been a poor choice of places, but I honestly, in this case, I don't think they did it because they were afraid, and I do think had it been Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or whatever, I think they would have had the same reaction, which to me makes it okay.
I don't know. The event was about censorship in art. And then they went and turned around and censored art.
It really wasn't about censorship in
it
art.
was.
The money was going to the National Coalition Against Censorship, but as they described the event, it was supposed to be something that brought people of all faiths together, and which is not the sense that they got from LaBute's play, that would be along the lines of that message.
I think boners bring people together.
Ideally.
Literally, yeah.
Okay, guys, we gotta go. Oh, Joe, you get the last word.
I do. I think they could have compromised and done a less offensive version called Mohammed Gets a Halfie. and then, take the lump.
Do you think that would enhance our respect for Islam as a religion of peace?
Well, where do you think little Mohammeds come from?
All right, coming up. Everything you wanted to know about Claire McCaskill and her Game of Thrones viewing habits. More Red Eye after the break, so stick around. She's sick about Claire McCaskill will no longer watch Game of Thrones after Sunday's wedding night rape scene involving the character of Sansa Stark. The Missouri Democrat tweeted, "Okay, I'm done Game of Thrones. Water Garden, stupid. Gratuitous rape scene, disgusting and unacceptable. It was a rocky ride that just ended." Others expressed outrage at the scene, noting that it's not the first time the show has used rape as a device. A popular feminist culture website said it would no longer promote the show with its editor-in-chief writing, "There's only so many times you can be disgusted with something you love before you literally can't bring yourself to look at it anymore." So, guys, Matt. Disorientated. First-time host. Okay, you're obviously a huge fan of Game of Thrones, right? And you've watched every episode to date, as have I.
Exactly.
So why do you think it was the rape of Sansa that turned Claire McCaskill off as opposed to the other brutal depictions of murder happening over the last 5 seasons?
I don't like red weddings and things like that. Like when there was the red wedding thing, I don't watch Game of Thrones, but when there was the red wedding thing, I was on Twitter and everyone was so sad about this, and I started crying about how bad it was. So I don't want to watch horrifying Dark Ages power struggles and rapes and all this kind of stuff. So my solution is I don't watch Game of Thrones
or any of HBO shows.
I watch some other ones, but you don't. Of course, that's what happened back then, and so they're going to depict it.
Back then, I thought this was a futuristic.
I mean, it even happens. It happens now all over the world, as you well know. No, I mean, rape is an ugly, horrible, weapon of torture and power in way too much of the world already, as it stands. And if you're going to watch a fiction on it, you're going to see some rapes.
Right. So, John, how dare HBO air such shows as The Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire and Oz and Game of Thrones? I mean, what are they thinking?
Isn't it great when hipster social justice warriors get angry at HBO? I want to go up to them and say, "Where's your God now?" This is great. No, it's great. Westeros is no better than UVA, and it's a dangerous, bad place. And this is one more example of the people, sort of progressive hipsters, wanting to show. I count Claire McCaskill as a hipster because I hate her that much. Just sort of wanting to show how different they are and show how politically engaged they are in the culture. Everything has to be political, and it's kind of gross.
But how could she claim surprise? I mean, she is admittedly a Game of Thrones fan, and we're 5 seasons deep. And guess what? There's a couple books that you could read. I mean, it's a violent show.
Right.
This is not the first rape on the show. So why Sansa?
I don't know. Maybe she was watching Twitter and she saw the reaction and realized, like, I had to get on the right side of this. You know, the Mary Sue has come out against Game of Thrones. Salon is going to be next.
Yeah.
You know, Jezebel will be right after that. I got to get ahead of this thing.
And she's a former prosecutor, so... Joe, what do you make of a website that covers pop culture saying it won't cover this element of pop culture?
I think it's interesting for people who are complaining about this saying, I'm going to boycott the show. It's like, no, just say you're not going to watch it anymore. Saying you boycott it, oh, okay. It's like saying if you watch it that you should get an executive producer credit. You're not that intimately involved with it. I've never watched Game of Thrones. Sounds like it's pretty rough stuff. I can't get past any of these sort of medievally type things because all I can think of is everyone must smell terrible because no one was bathing back then. So anything set before like 1950, I get a little grossed out.
It's a brilliant show, I have to say.
Well, but I will say this.
I love it.
I like to watch a lot of violent and upsetting kind of movies, but I don't watch it thinking like, it's great that they did that. I remember years ago when I watched Straw Dogs, the original with Dustin Hoffman. You'll get a lot of emotions in that movie, and none of them are pleasant, but it serves the artistic purpose. Same like a movie like The Road. If you watch the adaptation of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, every couple of minutes you're like, oh, God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. But when it's done, you won't really say, like, I really enjoyed that movie, but you've certainly experienced a creative work that had a lot of impact. So if you don't like the violent stuff, just watch something else. No one cares if you're not
Turn the channel. So, Andy, as the resident nerd on this show, what's your take on all of this?
First of all, I should point out I stopped watching the show after a couple episodes last season, not for any particular reason. I just got behind on it and then never caught up. But I watched the Sansa scene today, and I thought there was something interesting about it. They show it basically, they basically don't show her being raped. They cut away to another character, a male character, Reek/Theon, who's standing there. And I saw some feminists were upset because they were saying, oh, this is even worse because now they're showing it, it's only important about how a male reacts to the rape. I didn't get that at all. I thought they did that specifically to avoid showing it. So I don't think that they did this or had this in the script for the wrong quote-unquote reasons, i.e. to be titillating under the guise of showing a horrific act. I think the fact that they didn't actually show it mitigates that. My overall take is kind of, I don't really have an overall take. I don't think there's an objective truth on this. I think if your view is that this scene was unnecessary or was the last straw, that's 100% understandable. And as Claire McCaskill said, she's done. She's not watching the show. And if you think the showrunners are simply showing this world as it was, then that's fine too. Keep watching the show. I honestly don't think there's an objective truth on this story. I think it's just whatever your opinion is, it's a TV show. Watch it or don't.
But I bet you she still watches it because there's no way you can get through that many episodes and not care what's going to happen and boycott the show or turn the channel.
I hate to call Andy out on this, but you did set that scene as your ringtone. I think that was a bit much.
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response, except that one, which doesn't count because it was merely saying that I wasn't going to dignify it with a response.
Okay. Coming up, Christie visits New Hampshire. Find out if he chooses to live free or die. And the Greg Gutfeld Show premieres Sunday, May 31st at 10 p.m. Eastern. Each week, Greg invites guests to come on down and guess the prices of common household items.
Oh, wow.
It really showcases his talents.
Oh.
Live free or spy? During a town hall meeting in New Hampshire, Christie talked tough in favor of government surveillance. The New Jersey governor made it very clear that he is not Rand Paul when he gave this counter-argument to those who say the NSA violates your civil liberties.
There are going to be some who are going to come before you and going to say, oh, no, this is not what the founders intended. The founders made sure that the first obligation of the American government was to protect the lives of the American people. And we can do this in a way that's smart and cost-effective and protects civil liberties. But, you know, you can't enjoy your civil liberties if you're in a coffin.
Andy, can you enjoy your civil liberties in a coffin?
I absolutely can, and for him to mock my lifestyle like that, I think, you know, shame on you, Mr. Christie, if that is your real name. Yeah, you also can't enjoy a 6-course meal in a coffin. That doesn't stop him from enjoying 6-course meals while he's alive. So I would like to enjoy my civil liberties while I'm alive. As far as I'm concerned, he is exactly the kind of politician that the Founding Fathers had in mind when they added the Bill of Rights to the Constitution.
Right, and can you enjoy your constitutional rights with the NSA, you know, data mining and collecting all your metadata and content?
I cannot.
Okay, well, good. So we're in agreement on something then.
It makes me very, very angry, Brooke.
Joe, can Christie win the nomination by relying on these types of false dichotomies, die or succumb to government surveillance?
First, I'd like to say, live free or diet, more like it.
I can't believe you made a weight joke about Christie.
He was actually looked pretty good in that one, that clip. Yeah, this is ridiculous that it either has to be you're in a coffin or you disagree with the government surveillance. It's stupid, and the reason I don't like it is not just because it's unconstitutional. It's they're gathering all this information and they're not even using it correctly. To give you an example, you're more likely to have a Tea Party group get audited by the IRS, but the guys who were the shooters in Texas, they've been following that guy. They tracked him down before, and somehow they weren't able to monitor him enough. So whatever it is they're doing with this information, they're just doing a lousy job with it.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It totally trivializes the ongoing debate about personal liberty and public security. And what's, you know, particularly troubling, John, is when Christie calls people, quote, civil liberty extremists if you merely are asking questions and you are opposed to dragnetting content and metadata. I mean, you don't have to be a total extremist to think that's unconstitutional, right?
Look, I'm very uncomfortable with the body shaming going on at this table. Look, this is a very political approach for him. He needs to be Rand Paul's foil. Christie is looking to get footing in the race. I mean, I would not read too much into this. He and Rand Paul have beef going back, I think it's about 2 years, right, Matt? Yeah. So not surprising. And he's got to find a place for himself. I would say Rubio and Walker are so with where they are right now. You see a little bit of weakness in Jeb Bush's numbers. Christie was going to be a sort of moderate establishment candidate. If he's going to get to that space, he's got to get there by picking fights, and the Rand Paul fight is an obvious fight for him to pick.
But it's a wrong fight for him to pick for a constituent.
This is politics. There ain't no right and wrong in this.
But in New Hampshire, I'm going to go to the Free State Project and tell them that there's a civil liberties extremist right now, and that we shouldn't listen. Americans should not listen to Edward Snowden. I mean, the Second Circuit just made a ruling based on Edward Snowden, right? They said that the NSA was using Section 215 in such a way that was not intended by the authors of the Patriot Act, and we know this because of Edward Snowden. So Christie is saying, no, don't listen to that. The Second Circuit is wrong. Just do this. It's amazing to me how far he has fallen. He was supposed to be, you know, the great gubernatorial hope who's going to come in here. I think there was a widespread misapprehension 2 months ago even among a lot of Republicans that, you know, it's now we're at war again, baby. You know, we're going to go back there. It's going to be a hawk's race to lose. We can say that Snowden was fully like 2013. We've gone beyond that. And now you have Christie and Lindsey Graham and people, they're kind of floundering, and Jeb Bush is floundering about the Iraq war. I don't think that even the Republican electorate right now is that hawkish and is that against, you know, thinking about the Patriot Act in a different way.
Yeah, and some government, I don't know, regulation on how to collect private data. I mean, I don't know any Republican who thinks it's okay.
Big majorities of Republicans are in favor of reforming the Patriot Act right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one-on-one can't be done. A new survey found that in some offices on Capitol Hill, women can't be alone with their male bosses because it might give the wrong impression. Several female aides told the National Journal that they were barred from closed-door meetings, driving alone with their congressman or senator, or appearing with him at events without another male staffer present. One woman was told that appearing in so many party photos with her congressman was not appropriate. It's kind of hard to argue with that. So, Matt, do I look threatening to you?
Totally. It's the belly. That's a really kind of... I got to keep moving towards Andy. You know, it's kind of weird. I wonder, like, how much of this is they're worried about getting a harassment suit.
Right.
I mean, you do this on college campuses, right? Like, the professors will never, ever have the door closed with a student in it, male or female, but especially female. I think if it's a male professor, you wonder how much is that and how much of it is just like, I don't know what I'm going to do in my brown khaki pants if I see a lady in the room. The whole thing just reminds us, I think, that Washington is a terrible place, and Jonathan made bad mistakes about life choices.
Right. Well, less terrible than New York, but you agreed it's terrible, certainly. No, look, I get that. Look, the people who live on the people who work on the Hill, they're all kind of aliens anyway. I mean, some of them are very nice, and I get that. But this seems like it's protection for both sides in a weird way, and you know, like the world has sort of spun off its axis over the last 10 years. It makes some quasi amount of sense to me. If the culture were a little bit different than it was now, then maybe it would be more ridiculous.
They're afraid of a lawsuit. It's plain and simple. So, Andy, have you ever been left alone with a female staffer, and how did it make you feel?
No, I know myself well enough to know that that's a really bad idea. I don't understand. Blaming women? You're blaming women for this.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, you know, cause and effect, right?
I think the cause is that for many, many years, male senators and congressmen harassed their female staffers, and we finally reached a point where the female staffers said, this isn't right, and spoke up, and now, there's been this correction where the guys are now afraid to be in the room alone with the woman. But I think there's two reasons for this. I think, and it's weird because the author of this piece, she seems to think, her take is that these rules are based on the premise that women are devilish temptresses. I don't think that's what this is at all. I think it's far more likely that it's one, Congress is filled with lechers who would make passes at their staff if they had the opportunity, and two, D.C. is an incredibly gossipy town. And I think male senators and congressmen want to make sure they're never in a situation that could be misconstrued by others. And I think that's probably the main thing going on.
Joe, why are they only making passes at women and not men?
Well, I think it goes both ways. I know if you put me in a room alone with Nancy Pelosi, I don't know what I'd do. I think the only solution is to have the congressmen need to be wheeled out in sort of a Hannibal Lecter thing, bound up, and the women need to wear chastity belts and burqas. And I think that's the only way to prevent, nature from taking its course.
Time to take a break. Hacking into planes when we come back, but first, here's what's coming up tomorrow on Kennedy. Are flights vulnerable to hackers? FBI court documents claim that a security expert admitted to briefly taking control of a plane, causing it to fly sideways. Chris Roberts drew the attention of the feds last month after posting a tweet stating that he could make the plane's oxygen masks deploy. He was pulled off the United Airlines flight and questioned for 4 hours. Here's Roberts explaining how he knew he could command the plane.
I'm sitting on the plane, I'm looking at the infotainment system, and I'm acutely aware that I can go from here and go through several other systems on the plane's, vast array of networks and get to the avionics control surfaces.
Roberts claims the tweet was done to warn the airline industry of its vulnerabilities. So, Matt, how stupid do you have to be to hack into the controls of a plane and cause it to fly dangerously sideways while you're a passenger on that plane and then tweet about it?
I don't believe a single word in this. First, he's got the Duck Dynasty beard. Second, planes don't just fly sideways. Like remote control. This is like a Time magazine story about hacking from 1994. He pressed a button on a computer and then, the space shuttle blew up. It doesn't make any sense.
Eddie, does it make sense that the TV controls are one and the same of the flight controls?
Well, that part apparently is true, that you can get to one from the other. But look, if he took control of a plane's thruster, he should go to jail. Plain and simple, no pun intended. But apparently he's been warning airlines and airplane manufacturers for years that their flight systems were vulnerable to hacking, and he says he's gotten absolutely nowhere. So it seems like he's pretty much a white hat who maybe just did something really, really stupid.
Yeah, and so, Joe, the FBI is investigating this. Should we believe them?
I don't know. I think his skills are clearly limited if he's able to do this and then thinks it's a good idea to tweet this while he's getting on a plane.
How secure is that?
Keep that little quiet at that point. I think, I don't know. I think he's making it up, tell you the truth.
Jonathan, last word.
So he says they didn't make it go sideways, actually. What he did is lower the thrust in one of the engines for a second, so it didn't like go. It sounds like to me actually like. So there's an Ethernet port under the seat. He hacked into that. The whole thing is terrifying. It makes me never want to fly again. And I think he's a white hat, so it sounds righteous.
We'll close things out with a man who loves Friends. You can see Andy on Lou Dobbs Tonight, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Fox Business Network.
E-Block. Last story. That's the last story.
A man in China became so fixated with Friends that he transformed his whole world into a mirror image of the 90s sitcom. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The Friends fanatic opened Beijing's very own Central Perk and legally changed his name to Gunther. He treats his wife like Chandler treats Monica and even taught his son Joey to say, "How you doing?" He really is the master of his own domain.
My son, his English name is Joy. For me, Friends is my life. I want to find some place that's like Central Park, build like a friendship building.
The Central Park is his whole life.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. Even it's geek, I think.
It's easy to act Gunther. Just keep quiet and good service. Also a little bit cool, right? Of course, Baywatch. It's a Joy and Chandler series. Favorite TV show. Joy, I say keep running, like big bobs.
No soup for you. Joe, is Gunther living the all-American dream in China? And does it make you jealous?
Now, let me get this straight. You're telling me the Chinese are knocking off an American product. Now I yeah, I guess it could be worse. He could have based his whole life on Game of Thrones if he picked a different TV show. Yeah, the whole thing is pretty creepy. But if you watch the also, I like how they rip off the theme song. Come on, the Rembrandts need some royalties. Use the actual Rembrandts theme song instead of this nonsense version. But
John, how long do you think it's going to take for Gunther to get slapped with an injunction for copyright and trademark infringement by NBC?
This is the saddest story I've read in weeks. Like, I don't even really have words for it. And I do worry, didn't you, like, 1,000 years from now, like, aliens will come down to, like, pick through the remnants of our civilization. They're going to find this guy, and they're going to think that we grew up worshiping a fertility goddess named Jennifer Aniston, and that this was, like, the whole of our culture. The whole thing is just too depressing for words.
Yeah, Matt, I mean, every time I watch Friends, I get depressed knowing that the girl's living room is bigger than my two-bedroom apartment. I mean, how can this man actually feel good about himself?
I think everything about the story is great. It makes me feel happy, to be alive. I say this as someone who visited, no lie, South Forkscu, which is the Romanian of South Fork in Slobozia, Romania, where some gypsy king thief, like cheese tycoon, who claimed he was friends with George W. Bush and is now serving 10 years in the pokey. He started up, weirdly put an Eiffel Tower in a cornfield. I love all of it.
Very special thanks to Jonathan Last, Joe DeVito, TV's Andy Levy, and Matt Welch.
He chose
that does
Gunther.
it for me.
Who chooses Gunther?
I'll see you next time.
Idiot.